Welcome to your Daily Dopamine with Dr. Joe McCullough, where we deliver daily doses of education, entertainment, and inspiration. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be dopamine, dopamine, dopamine. Oh, yeah.
All right, welcome to the replay. Legendary Woo. Welcome for those of you joining live. Thank you so much. My name is Dr. Joe McCullough. I'm the physics program chair at Cabrillo College in Santa Cruz, California. And I made a one-year commitment to get on Periscope every single day and share daily doses of dopamine through education, entertainment, and inspiration. Today, finally getting a chance to finish my 5-part series on Teach Like TED. Now, I'll give you a little bit of background. A couple of people have asked me, who is TED? TED is not a person. TED stands for Ola. Welcome, Zakaris. Welcome to Faja. TED is not a person. TED stands for Technology, Entertainment, and Design. TED Talks. If anybody doesn't know about TED Talks, you don't know what you're missing. They are the gold standard of presentations. So what I'm talking about is the best-selling book, Talk Like TED. What I'm going to do is go through the 9 public speaking secrets that Carmine Gallo identified in Talk Like TED. And then for each of those 9 public speaking secrets, I'm going to give you 3 ways that you can use that in your classroom if you're a teacher, or if you're a presenter, how you can use that in your workshops, trainings to teach better, present material more engaging. Okay, so a little bit of background. TED Talks have been viewed online more than 1 billion. Are you talking like TED right now? Hopefully, I'm going to be using a lot of this strategy, so yes, I hope so. But it's been a long day. I'm going to try and keep this to 20 minutes. So, talking about Teach Like TED, how to take the results of Talk Like TED, 9 public speaking secrets, and use that as a teacher, as a presenter, to convey your information more powerfully. Okay, so first off, the most engaging TED presentations are emotional. They touch my heart. They are novel. They teach me something new, and they're memorable. They present content in ways I'll never forget. For each of these 3 characteristics, Carmine Gallo identified 3. He calls them public speaking secrets, but they're not really secrets. Any public speaker is probably aware of these, but he uses TED Talks sort of as a framework to go through them. I'm using his framework to develop some strategies that you can use as teachers in the classroom. So, secret number 1 is, dun-dun-dun-dun, unleash the master within. This is all about passion. It's conveying the passion you have for your subject and inspiring other people. And one of the key points that Carmine talks about in this chapter is you cannot inspire others unless you yourself are inspired. So if you're giving a presentation, you must be sure that you're inspired by your content. Now, how can you use this in the classroom as a teacher? Silver lining, welcome. 1, convey your enthusiasm. If you're not enthusiastic about the subject you're teaching, you should probably consider possibly getting another job. 2, give your students the big picture and the why. Big picture meaning, how is what they're learning going to fit into their life, and why is it important for them? Now, if you cannot convey the big picture and the why to your students, they are going to have trouble now following you. Why, thank you so much. They're going to have trouble staying motivated for your class. And then 3, get your students excited by your class. Now, this is a big one. I have lately stopped worrying about covering any content the very first day of class. I teach college physics, and I'm always feeling a bit stressed by all the material I have to cover. I stopped worrying about that. My very first day of class, all I do is get my students excited by the class. I showed them some great demos. I talk about the wonders of physics and the universe. I show them some cool magic tricks. Caught you live. Yay, welcome. Oh, so great. Welcome, Love Tribe in the house. So, secret number 1, unleash the master within. How you can apply that is 1, convey your enthusiasm. 2, give your students the big picture and the why. 3, get students excited for your class. Okay, secret number 2 is master the art of storytelling. There's something about stories that just tends to connect people. and it lowers people's defenses. If you had something difficult to say to somebody, one of the easiest ways of doing it is through storytelling. Now, how can you use storytelling in the classroom? 1, tell personal stories and or stories about the people involved in your field. Now, as a physics teacher, like I said, I'm constantly sort of stressed because I have so much material to cover. I wish I had more of an opportunity to talk more about the stories of people involved in my field, but I try to, not always possible. Number 2, show a funny and or embarrassing picture about yourself. This is a great way to start the year, and let me actually just show you a picture that I show my students about myself. See if I can turn this around real quick. Okay, let me just turn this around. So this is a picture of me from way back when, and I joke around with my students that one of the reasons I got so interested in physics and math is because of the perfectly circular haircut I had growing up as a kid. And if I were to actually draw a circle, you would say complete 360 degrees. And it's not just me. Check this out. These are my younger brothers. We all have bowl haircuts. I don't know why my parents insisted on that, but thing that you show a picture like that to your students and it instantly connects them to you. It makes them feel like you're more of a person. You're not this super duper authority in charge of the class. You're somebody just like them. And then 3, become verbal ninjas. Now, this is a great one. A few things about becoming verbal ninja. I kind of made that up, but you really want to focus on the language that you use. As a teacher, get rid of the phrase, I want you to. I hear teachers say that all the time when I'm doing evaluations. I want you to take out your books. I want you to turn to page 45. I want you to turn in the homework. Get rid of the phrase, I want you to. Replace it with either please followed by a verb. Please take out your books. Please hand in your homework. Or even just let's. Let's take out our example packets and look at example number 2. Second thing to get rid of is, and this is a big one, questioning strategies. Do not ask questions by saying, okay, who has a question? What a student hears, no matter how confident they are, what a student hears is, who doesn't understand the material and is willing to admit their ignorance in front of everybody? 2 ways you can replace that. 1, what questions can I answer? 2, what would we benefit from reviewing in more detail? And whenever I'm asking this, what you want to do is raise your hand, model the behavior you want to see. So I might say something like, all right, we've covered some great material. I have a minute or 2 left. What would we benefit from reviewing in more detail? And I stand up straight, hold my hand straight up in the air, and then I count to 5 internally. 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004, 1005. Because a mistake students or teachers make is they say, okay, are there any questions? Okay, no, let's move on. Take students time to generate the questions. You want to ask them so they feel safe. So get rid of who has a questions, what questions are there, replace it with what questions are there aren't bad, but what questions can I answer? And even better, what would we benefit from reviewing in more detail? Okay, secret number 3 is have a conversation. Now, what you want to do is get out of presenter mode, ideally, and start talking like you're having a conversation with the participants. Now, a couple ways you have to do this. 1, if you're going to have a conversation, you need to know the material down pat. You don't want to be thinking about, okay, what comes next, because then your mental energy is not focusing on, okay, let me just have a relaxed conversation and build rapport. It's thinking about what comes next. How can you use this in the classroom? 1, be conscious of and practice your verbal delivery. Things like rate, volume, pitch, and pauses. How do you do this? Videotape yourself. Something I avoided for many years for some reason, I don't know why, but now I do it routinely. And in fact, one of the reasons I'm doing these daily Periscope videos is so I get more comfortable in front of the camera, and so I can actually watch how I'm presenting, seeing if there's words I use too often, see if there's gestures I do a lot. I know I tend to talk a lot with my hands. 2, use gestures to emphasize key. What the hell does that say? Key moments. Sorry. Use gestures at key moments. And then 3, learn your students' names as soon as possible. One of the best things I've done as a teacher is committed to learning all of my students' names as quickly as possible. I've done an entire series on how to learn students' names. If you haven't seen it, check out my YouTube channel, Joe McCullough. But quickly learn your students' names. I learn all of my students' names by the beginning of the second week of class. And then that very first day on the second week, I greet all of my students by name. Instantly connects me to the students, and it makes them feel like I really, really care about them, which I do. Okay, secret number 4 is teach me something new. You want to reveal information in a completely new way. How many students do I have? Great question. I have one class of 50 students and one class of 40, so about 90 students total. And at the beginning of the year, I had over 100. A few of them dropped. I learned all 100 names in about 2.5 hours of total study time. Okay, so one of the things about Teach Me Something New is, from a little bit of neuroscience, anytime you learn something new, you are activating the same pleasure areas of the brain as if you're doing drugs or things like that. And it releases dopamine. Liberal or conservative? Not sure what you mean by that. You have a good memory. Thank you. Well, I've practiced. One little thing, there's no such thing as a good memory or a bad memory. There's only a trained or untrained memory. Everybody can improve their memory using some simple techniques. Okay, so teach me something new. Here's 3 things you can think about as a teacher. 1, increase novelty in the classroom. One way I do this is through magic. I started doing some magic earlier, about a year and a half ago, and I love it. Using props, things they just don't expect. So if the energy is low, can you please share your YouTube channel? Search for Joe McCullough at YouTube. I archive all of these Periscope videos, usually about 3 or 4 days behind, but I've got all my old Periscope videos up there. So increase novelty in the classroom, something unexpected. If the energy's ever low, sometimes I'll just do one of these. So it's just something unexpected. Anytime that you can use some kind of novelty, it jars people out of their sort of preconceived notion. It gets them paying attention. 2, make learning joyful and adventurous. I'm constantly thinking about how can I bring joy into my classroom. And then 3, celebrate all successes. This is a great one. Anytime a student asks a question, that's a great. Well, in fact, anytime a student asks a question, my first response is usually, thank you, that's a great question. If students do well on a quiz or exam, I give stickers. Even as a college physics instructor, students love stickers. If a student does a great job on an example problem or something, or we've struggled through something,
that was easy.
I've got a that was easy button in my classroom.
That was easy.
They love it. And in fact, I've got a couple of these where you can record your own voice, and sometimes I'll record messages for students. I love my easy button. So do I. I've got one in my office at school, one in my office here, one in my classroom. I love it. And in fact, I hit this
that was easy
all the time as just a little personal reward for any successes I have. Okay, secret number 5 is deliver jaw-dropping moments. What you want to do is create what's called Am I Late? I am doing secret number 5, but in fact, let me just do a quick little review for those of you just joining. We are talking about Teach Like TED. I'm going through the 9 public speaking secrets that Carmine Gallo identified in his book, Talk Like TED, and then how you can use that in the classroom to become a better presenter, to make sure your information gets stored. 5th grade science teacher. Oh, great. I've got some great scopes. If you're just joining, you should check out my YouTube channel. Anyway, I went through 1, unleash the master within. Some strategies: convey your enthusiasm, give your students the big picture and the why, and get students excited for your class. Welcome from Texas. 2, master the art of storytelling. 3 things you can do: tell personal stories or stories about people involved in your field. Show a funny and or embarrassing picture. Become verbal ninjas. Secret number 3, have a conversation. Some things you can do is Columbia in the house. Welcome. Be conscious of and practice your verbal delivery. Use gestures at key moments and learn your students' names as soon as possible. Just did secret number 4, teach me something new. How can you do that? Increase novelty in the classroom, make learning joyful and adventurous, and celebrate all successes. Okay, secret number 5, deliver jaw-dropping moments. Get your students' rapt attention. Make sure that you are doing things that completely get them excited. What you want to do is create what's called an emotionally charged event. It's one of the most well-remembered and best processed events there are. Now, how can you do that? 1, purposely create teachable moments. There's many different ways of doing that. Like I said, I use magic trick. I vary my vocal variations. Sometimes I'll just on the table and make sure their attention is there. Other times, I may just lower my voice, talk quietly, or even a purposeful pause. Whatever you do to create a teachable moment so all of the students are paying attention, waiting to hear what you have to say next. 2, use concrete and meaningful examples. You want to tie your content to your students' lives so they start to feel that it's relevant. As a physics teacher, I teach in Santa Cruz, California. Skateboarding is big. Anytime I'm teaching conservation of energy or conservation of momentum, I try and incorporate examples that have to deal with skateboarding, something my students understand. And then 3, capture your students' attention. Okay, secret number 6 is lighten up. Have fun. Don't take yourself too seriously. It's only life. Greetings from Atlanta. I'm glad you have a show on personal growth. Well, thank you for joining. Okay. Okay, so how can you lighten up? 1, have fun and don't take yourself too seriously. 2, add humor into your presentations. Sometimes if class seems to be dragging, which it usually doesn't because I'm pretty engaging, I'll actually just say, look, you guys look like you need a good laugh. I'll throw in a joke, or I'll even ask students if they have a joke they want to share. And then another one, Fiverr.com, Fiverr.com. If you don't know about it, it's an online marketplace for people that do services for $5. Let me show you a couple examples of things that I've got. So I have 16 different caricatures that I've made of myself. And what I try to do is every week, I'll post a new picture online. Students never actually know what kind of picture. This is the one I just had for Halloween. There's me as Dr. Science. This is actually, I forget if this is Simpsons or Futurama. I've also had little stick or finger puppets made, or have somebody say, hey, I love physics 2A. Got a great little quote from Einstein. How you study is way more important than how much you study, by Dr. Joe McCullough. Couple of ideas, but have fun, mix it up, don't take yourself too seriously. The more joy and fun you can have, actually it's going to make sure your students, 1, want to come to class, and then 2, care about your class, and then 3, it's also going to help make sure it sticks in their long-term memory. Okay, secret number 4, stick to the 18-minute rule. All TED Talks are 18 minutes for a reason. If you go longer, what they call is cognitive backlog. Basically, you start to tune out. We can only pay attention for so long before we start to use up our mental energy. And you may never have thought about this, but critical thinking is exhausting. If you're really listening intently and focusing, it takes a tremendous amount of energy, much more energy than most teachers realize. Now, how can you apply this in the classroom? 1, break each class into chunks of about 20 minutes, followed by an interactive review. So I teach for 80 minutes. I try and break that 80 minutes up into 3 or 4 chunks of teaching. So I'm going to teach for 20 minutes and do some kind of interactive review, or even have students get up and stretch. Then I teach for another 20 minutes, followed by an interactive review, and then another 20 minutes, followed by an interactive review. I try and basically group my content into groups of 3. Wow, 80. I'm not sure what lightning craft you're saying, but 80, yes. Oh, 80 minutes. Yes, I teach for 80 minutes at a time, and then I try and break that up into 3 or 4 chunks. Now, best way for me of using an interactive review is using clickers. If you're a teacher and you don't know about it, look up clickers. I've been using them for 13 years. It's one of the greatest things I've ever done. Real quick, what they are is each student gets a remote control. The system I'm using is called iClicker. And what happens is I'll post a multiple choice question on an overhead projector. My students get 2 or 3 minutes to talk it over with other students. And then what they do is using the remote, they punch in their answer to a receiver. The software gets the results, and then I see a histogram of how many people answered A, B, C, D, or E. It's a great way of getting students interacting. Peer instruction is one of the best ways of students learning, and there's just something about a remote control. Students eat this up. Greatest thing I've ever done as a teacher. Top 3. I would definitely say this is the #1 thing I've done as a teacher, is incorporate clickers into the classroom. The system I recommend is called iClicker. And then last but not least, apply the rule of 3. Meaning we can really only focus and learn, let's say, 3 things in a sitting. If you start to try and incorporate more than that, students start to lose focus, and it's hard for us to pay attention to more than that. So if I'm teaching 80 minutes, I'm thinking, what are the 3 main things I want to get across to my students during this 80 minutes? And in fact, this whole presentation has been the rule of 3, because Carmine Gallo broke them up into all engaging TED presentations are emotional, novel, and memorable. For each of those 3, he did 3 public speaking secrets. And then for all of the 9 public speaking secrets, I'm giving you 3 strategies for how to apply them in the classroom. Okay, 2 more. If you've been with me the whole time, thank you so much. Secret number 8, paint a mental picture with multi-sensory experiences. I've gone through this many times in my scopes. You probably have seen me if you've been watching me. We have 3 main ways of taking in information. Those are visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. If you're presenting material, you want your audience to feel the material. And the way to do that is to use multi-sensory experiences. Think about, how am I going to communicate this information visually? How am I going to communicate this information auditorily? How am I going to use kinesthetic strategies to make sure my students getting it? So 3 ways to do this is 1, incorporate VAK strategies into every lesson. Again, VAK stands for visual, auditory, kinesthetic. I've done several scopes dealing with this. I'm not going to go through them, but there's different teaching strategies for each learning modality. Think about, what is the visual component, what is the auditory component, what is the kinesthetic component. 2, help make sure your audience really feels. My son wants to shout out, Joshua. Hey, Joshua, welcome. Help the audience to feel your presentation. Again, that'll help if you're using visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, but really just think about connecting with the audience, making sure they feel exactly what you want them to feel. And, oh, you are so welcome. And the way to do that is just by being very conscious of the language you use, the visual data you're showing people. And then last but not least, pictures instead of text. 1, if you teach from PowerPoint, stop it. PowerPoint is so overused, and it's mind-numbing for students to sit in a classroom and see slide after slide after slide. If you do use PowerPoint, think about keeping the text to a minimum. I show slides all the time, but my slides are full of videos and pictures and diagrams. I keep text to an absolute minimum. Last but not least, thank you, you're so welcome, agree. Yes, and what Carmine Gallo recommends is that you should have no more than 40 words on your first 10 slides. And in fact, the average PowerPoint slide has 40 words per slide. Way too much information for people to take in, especially the rate at which people tend to go through PowerPoint slides. Pictures, 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 funny pictures, diagrams. Keep the text to a minimum. In fact, watch some of the best TED presentations and you'll see their PowerPoint slides are all pictures? What about equations? Great question. I will sometimes review equations on PowerPoint where I'll show 3 or 4 equations where I just don't want to take the time to write it on the board. But I post all of my PowerPoint slides at the beginning of the semester so students can download them all so they don't have to try and copy them as I'm showing them. And I rarely do that. I like to write equations on the board. How many words in the first 10 slides? Carmine Gallo recommends no more than 40 words on the first 10 slides of any presentation. You want it to be powerful pictures that gets people engaged, and that doesn't happen with text. Okay, last but not least is secret number 9, stay in your lane. This is all about being open, authentic, and transparent, not trying to be something you're not. People can spot a phony, and as a teacher, if you're trying to present material you don't understand or you're trying to be something you're not, students catch on to that. Okay, how can you apply that in the classroom? 1, know your content like the back of your hand. If you don't know the content, right, you probably shouldn't be teaching it. Main idea with the first 10 slides. 2, what is that? Oh, practice delivering your content, especially the first 15 minutes, right? If you have an hour-long presentation, let's say maybe not necessarily a class, but you're giving a keynote or something like that, generally the first 15 minutes are the most important, followed by the last part of the talk. And it's usually when you're the most nervous. So when you're practicing, you want to nail that first 15 or 20 minutes so well that you don't even have to think about it. And then last but not least is be authentic, open, and transparent. As a teacher, I teach college physics. I have some phenomenal students that ask me great questions, and if I don't know a question, I don't pretend to know it. I say, thank you, that's a great question. I don't know the answer, but I'll investigate it and I'll get back to you tomorrow. How are you? I am great. Well, for those of you joining, I'm not going to do a full recap. I'm trying to keep these to about 20 minutes, and I actually have no idea how long I've been talking for. Talking about Teach Like TED. I just went through the 9 public speaking secrets that all TED presenters have in common, and I gave you 3 strategies for each of those 9. Hey, North Carolina. So if you haven't caught the whole broadcast and that sounds interesting to you, check out the replay. And if you enjoy this, consider following me. I'm on here every single day. And the next 3 or 4 days, what I'm going to be doing is some tips from Success Magazine. I've been subscribing to Success Magazine for the last 6 or 7 or 8 years. I absolutely love it. But I have been behind and I haven't had a chance to read the last few months. So I'm going to go through those, share some tips. Stay a little. Hey, Lydian. If anybody has some questions, I'll actually hang out for a couple minutes and answer any questions. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Joe McCullough. I'm the physics program chair at Cabrillo College in Santa Cruz, California. I'm also the best-selling author of Accelerated Learning Techniques for Students. I'm on Periscope every single day. I think this is day 87 or 88 in a row. I'm going to follow you. Thank you so much. Okay, well, great content, but more importantly, great delivery. You held me the whole time. Hey, I'm applying what I'm learning. Thank you, and I hope you can actually see the passion that I have for this material. If you're not passionate about what you're teaching, students will pick up on that. They will tune out. People can spot a phony, somebody who's presenting something without really being invested in it. So I think this is awesome stuff. And again, this is a great book. If anybody hasn't read it, Talk Like TED. And if you're not familiar with TED Talks, they have become the gold standard of presentations. Some of the brightest minds in the entire world every year get together, present amazing talks. All of them are less than 18 minutes long, and they're just great, great, great stuff. Okay, everybody who joined, thank you so much. My name is Joe McCullough, and I hope to see you all later on this week. Have a wonderful Monday, and take care.